Brent sneaking into the live entry music there. I like it.
I try.
Did you see it behind the scenes? Obviously, people watching can't see, but behind the scenes when you did that, I was like, "Oh my God, Brent! We just heard your voice.
What just happened?" No, I sit back and I like dance to the theme song, chair dance, I guess. And yeah, I'm like, man, I mean, here we go. This is on. Like, we're doing it. I'm excited.
Oh, Alex Smash just came up with your
DJ
name.
Nice.
And I kind of love it. Oh, that's
feeling
amazing.
The ECR vibes, man. So it's funny because ECR doesn't get a lot of attention, but it is one of my favorite services because it's so simple. It's just so easy. It's when I think of or talk about the definition of cloud native, like my definition of cloud native, ECR is always the service that I use as my example, because my definition is it's just an API, and you just use it and consume it or write to it, and you never have to worry about picking sizes, making choices. You don't have to worry about, is it up, is it did I choose the right instance type? There's really very few choices that you make. You just use it, and it's there, and it's just always available, and you only pay for what you use and while you're using it and all that stuff. So man, it is, it's just so simple to use. It's so cool.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned highly available, and I love this with AWS services when they're built on top of other AWS services. So this is an example of, Pavan mentioned it yesterday, but ECR is built on top of S3. So all your data is redundant, highly available behind the scenes, right? And that's just,
right.
You just get that. And again, it's just, I make an API call, take my image, and that's it. And now store it in a high available way.
And, okay, let's mentally build ECR real quick, because Docker puts out the Docker registry. So we could start with that. And Docker registry can use S3 on the back end. So we can configure it to do that. But then we have to run it in a highly available way, right? So we can't just have one registry running. We need to have a few spanning across AZs. Then we need to have like one name that we can refer to it as. So we need to have some kind of service discovery or load balancer or something like that in front of it. Then it needs to scale up and down. So, when we're using it, and especially heavily using it, it needs to scale up. And then when it's not really being used, it needs to scale back down. So we need to have auto scaling in place. Then what we're going to talk about today, image scanning, like that's just built in. So we need to be running a whole other service that is just sitting there in the background waiting for a push to come in, and every time there's a new layer written, we need to scan it. So like that's a lot that you'd have to build on your own and maintain on your own and have to contend with, and instead you just don't. So and there's some other nuances, like we automatically compress your images for you. So, a 200 meg image on my laptop is only a 50 meg image in ECR. So you'd have to build something that could do that for you as well. So like, then there's the IAM gating, like granting access via roles, via IAM policy. Like there's all that stuff that you just get out of the box that you would have to build on your own and manage. So, I mean, ECR is pretty awesome when you step back and you think about what it's doing for you.
Yeah. And from an IAM perspective, you can attach roles, policies to the resources accessing them, or you can have repository roles, right? So you can get granular per repository to define who and what can access that particular image, what tag of the image, so there's a lot you can do with that.
Exactly. Hey, look who's back. Techie
Hey,
Stories.
long time no
Greetings.
see.
I know, right? Greetings to Finland. Good to see you again. And Alex Smasha calling out Pavan, had some nice diagrams yesterday. Pavan did a great talk yesterday on ECR. So that was, and yeah, it was good stuff. Cube Jerome, here we go.
He's
And
a little
then,
late today, Cube Jerome. That was 3 minutes into the show.
Yeah. Satya, good to see you again.
Hey there.
And yeah, hope you're doing well also. Tech, we didn't mean to make you feel guilty.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. I mean, you can always go to our YouTube channel and get caught up on the shows that you missed. So, yep. Man, I guess we're kind of beating up on our audience a little bit.
Making everyone feel bad today. I'm so sorry. That wasn't the intention.
Yeah. Sorry about that. We need to turn the aggression down a notch or two.
Just to put it in perspective, it's been a very busy day for Brett and I, so we're on edge, I guess.
Oh my gosh, yes. Today it feels like next Thursday. I mean, there's just so much happening right now. Speaking of what's going on today, and what are we going to be doing later today?
Yes. So, well, geez, okay.
Maybe I shouldn't have put you on the spot like that. Did you know we have more to do today?
Brain is like explosion right now. So, hey, Coey Dave is here.
Oh, good to see you.
Our friend that's building the amazing Copilot CLI.
And that kind of goes along with what we're going to be doing later today.
So today we have a lot going on, Brent. So right now we're going to be talking about. So yesterday Pavan talked about encrypting your images at rest in ECR with KMS. Today we're going to talk about when your images get to ECR, scanning them.
Would be impressive. That would be truly impressive.
In transit, so scanning your images at rest in ECR. And the reason why I said before was because I have a demo where we're actually we have a CI/CD pipeline, and we're going to show what we can do to stop insecure images from being promoted to our environments. So that's what I meant when I was saying that. But so that's today. Right now, later in the day, Brett and I are hosting a workshop, an ECS workshop for the Americas Online Summit. And that's where we're going to be talking about Copilot to deploy our microservices, which obviously, if you watch this show, we did that last week. You folks got to be the early adopters, to see us do that. So that was cool.
Exactly.
So that's what's going on today.
Yeah. So if you didn't know it, there is an online summit happening right now. And there are some workshops scheduled, and we're going to be doing Copilot. So I think the workshop is full, so don't rush away to go sign up. But don't worry, you haven't missed it. We actually did it already on the show. And it's also now pushed to ecsworkshop.com. And we're just going to be following the Copilot instructions. So we're featuring Copilot. It's an amazing product. It's an amazing CLI, and it helps you get going on ECS super quickly. So yeah, awesome. And yeah, Alex Masha added the URL. You can sign up. It's free. You can go back and rewatch the keynotes and the breakouts and stuff like that. And then of course, thank you, Alex. We need to put him on the payroll.
we have an official moderator now. That's awesome.
I know, I love it. That's awesome. Techie Story says positive though, if thinking of COVID-19, that we are still busy. Yes.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen. Agreed there. Thankful every day for that. Okay. What do you say we start doing some live demoing and have some fun?
Let's do it. Are you gonna demo, or am I?
Well, I'm gonna demo, but I think the real question is, are you gonna switch to the demo or am I? And I think it's you. Thank you.
Okay. Sweet.
So so we talked about image scanning in ECR. So I think first and foremost, let's just talk about what ECR image scanning is and kind of how it all fits in, into the overall picture. So, okay, first of all, the ECR image scanning, basically this is checking for software vulnerabilities in your Docker images. This is when we look at scanning, security scanning in a containerized world, there's two ways to look at it, right? There's two approaches. And to use one versus the other, I would say use both. So there's static scanning, which is where we're scanning just a static image, right? An image that's stored in a repository. That's your static scanning. And then there's dynamic scanning. This is where you actually have taken that image and now you're running that image as a container in an orchestrator, or just wherever, right? You're running a container and you want to actively monitor that container for any vulnerabilities. For today, we're talking about static scanning, right? So the image is not up and running. It's just stored somewhere, which is ECR. And now we want to scan that image for vulnerabilities. So,
and let's be real. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, the place where you're probably going to catch the most vulnerabilities and you're going to be the most interested is the static scan. Whether or not an image changes, and introduces vulnerabilities while it's running, that seems pretty low. Like the chances of that are pretty low. So it certainly would be a nice to have feature, I suppose, but like what I'm really going to be leveraging is the static scan like 99% of the time. So I want to know if a CVE or a vulnerability has been baked into the image, because we expect that when you're running your container, it is running the way it was built, right? That's, it changing just doesn't really happen very often, if ever.
Yeah. And plus, listen, if you're building containers, you're most likely moving pretty fast. So even if there is a vulnerability, there's a good chance your next build is going to have the updated, version. Now, I guess really where static or a dynamic scanning comes into play 0 days. That's just the thing that comes to my mind is I have a 0 day. Let's see what's running out there. But I totally agree with you. I think statically scanning.
Yeah, and you're still going to pick up a 0 day with a static scan. It's sitting in your registry. It's still going to register a new CVE. So it's just
unless you don't push it, if you don't update it. That's the thing.
That's true. I guess you could always
changed it for a long time.
You could always re-trigger a scan though, couldn't you?
You can, yeah. And so with you can scan an image once a day, basically, with a tag. But every time you push a new tag, you can get a fresh scan on that.
Totally.
So, so good points. But yeah, that's a good point. I think, but I think
it still would be caught by a static scan. So Boke Joe, technically yes, but some folks do apt update or install something afterward in the container. Oh, at runtime, I'm now seeing. So like when the container starts up, then they modify. Oh, don't do that.
Right. That's exactly what I was going to say, right? Is you just shouldn't be doing that. But again, I get it. This is why you want to have these controls in place, because if someone does, right, it's not a recommended practice, but let's be real. When things go bad, sometimes you just got to get in there and install a tool to troubleshoot. So not ideal.
Techie Stories side note, by the way, says, I had a demo today about API open source observability platform using Docker and Kubernetes. It was great.
Nice.
I was doing it live. Nice.
I like that. I just, for funsies, just gonna give Techie Stories the doing it live banner.
Exactly. Lost algorithm. Man, I guess I'm just a little salty today because I just totally felt that sigh. Yep.
By the way, that was why I stopped, because I knew exactly what you were going to say, and I'm like, yes, just say it, Brent. But anyways, look, it's true. Oh, hello. All right.
Hey,
it's
good
nice
to see you.
YouTube,
Welcome.
Yes. Okay.
All right,
So
back to the scan.
So this is image scanning. Now, when it comes to image scanning, this was built on the open source, it was formerly CoreOS Claire project. And that's where the findings come from. So the CVEs come from the Claire project, which is open source, which is here, which is now under Quay. But this is what it was built on, ECR image scanning. And basically, ECR checks the severities of CVEs through upstream, which is Claire, or there's other upstream sources like the National NVD, National Vulnerability Database for SEV ratings, or the upstream, like I said earlier. So that's how it generates a CVSS score, which is basically your vulnerability score for that particular package. And one thing, I did a tech talk on this a few months ago, and one thing I remember being asked quite a bit was, is this scanning my, if I have, Python or Node, is this scanning those modules that I use? And it's not really designed for that. This is more designed for, your packages that you're installing through the package manager, right? So like Linux, Bash, or
OS level packages.
Exactly. So, SSL, for example, SSL is the fun one. Heartbleed, when that came out, that's an example of a CVE that would be.
Man, I still have PTSD from that.
Yeah, fun times. Fun times.
Gosh, I think that was a reboot the data center day, so it was not awesome.
Yeah, that is really not fun. But so the nice thing about ECR image scanning, okay, and this is going along the lines of what you were saying, Brent, is it's beyond. If you were to build all of this yourself, you have to think about ways to handle events, right? So if an event occurs, how are you going to trigger a reaction to that event? Or if you have a pipeline, how are you going to actually work within that data to stop your pipeline or to notify someone? So there's really great clean integrations with Eventbridge. So we've talked about Eventbridge before on the show, but that is an event bus that essentially you can have other partners can ship data to Eventbridge, but also AWS services can send data to Eventbridge, and then you can react off of those events. So I'll show an example of that in a little bit. But I think what we should do is just let's get to a demo and kind of show what this looks like in real time.
Yeah.
And Brent, how much does ECR image scanning cost?
$0.
Free 99. It is $0.
Free 99.
Yeah, ECR image scanning, it's included. So meaning you don't pay extra for it.
Exactly.
And you can enable it on, like, when you create the repository, you can actually enable scan on push. So every time you push to your repository, a scan will be triggered. And again, you don't pay for it, so why don't you just use it?
Exactly. Why not?
Right?
There's no good reason why not to do it. Why not to do this? And in fact, you could do this even if you do have other scanning tools. Just throw this into the mix. There's no reason not to. So Lost Algorithm, while you're getting set up, says, talking about the OS level detection versus package level, programming package level detection. I like that distinction. Platforms like pip and PM will always be better equipped to gauge those specific vulnerabilities. And I said, they can be picked up by your coding package manager at build time. True. So absolutely. You can find, you get reports, you get like, hey, this is out of date, you should update it. I get, I get GitHub notifications about that stuff. So that's a good place to handle those kinds of vulnerabilities. Just update your libraries or packages there. And then, kick off your test suite, make sure everything works the way you expect, make a new build, and deploy that build out. So it's awesome. But there's nothing that looks at the OS packages until you're using something like this.
Exactly. exactly. So there we go. I just disabled my dark reader. Okay, so I have a couple images pushed to ECR. For the demo, I have a base image, which, by the way, so the base image I did this for a demo, a tech talk, in May, and I hadn't really touched it for a while. And then just today, as I was just refreshing everything, I was pulling from my upstream Docker Hub, and I got rate limited because they just introduced some new limits. So I had to push it to ECR really fast. I was doing this last minute, but the good news is it's here and it's okay.
Nice.
But almost didn't have it.
We should do a show on caching Docker Hub so that you can work around those rate limits.
Absolutely. I totally agree. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
Sometimes when you enable scan on push, Jenkins jobs fails. Does ECR have bugs? I'm not familiar with that specific condition. I haven't run into that, but I think it would depend, because if you're just doing push, then the scan hasn't kicked off yet. So whether it's enabled or not, so it sounds to me like there's an error when pushing. And you said Jenkins, so that's where my suspicion is going to lie, unfortunately. I think, I never really have an issue pushing to ECR, but I've stopped using Jenkins a long time ago. So,
yeah. I think we lost Brent. And as far as I know, you're back. We lost you for a moment, and I don't know if that was me.
No,
was that me or you?
I think it was me, because everything froze for me.
Okay. Oh yeah, I'm on VPN. Man, it could have been me. It could have been me. You just realized.
I think it was me, but yeah, you shouldn't be on VPN.
Cool. So long story short, this is most likely. I mean, we'd have to hear more, get more data, just to understand. But generally, enabling scan on push doesn't affect the ability to push to your repo or anything like that. It's just a trigger. Okay. So I have my ECR demo repository. I pushed an image, and just to give you an idea of what it looks like, so this is in the console. I can access everything programmatically as well. And one thing I talk about a lot is any call you make in the console. So any button click you do in the console, there's an API call for that. Meaning I can do this same thing from the CLI, from an SDK, and I can grab the same data. So I just obviously go to the console because sometimes it's prettier and easier to understand and read. So I've pushed my image, and I did it just earlier, and you can see a scan ran right away. And before I do that, you know what? Let's create a repository. Oh. This is something I haven't done. So when you create a repository, okay, there's a couple button clicks you can do. And again, just flags for a SDK call or a CLI call. So the first one's tag immutability. So you have the ability to protect tags so they don't get overwritten. Also, then there's the ability to enable image scanning. So when you enable scan on push, again, that means every time you push a new tag, that whatever layers were updated, they're going to get scanned by ECR automatically. And you're going to get that data in your ECR repository, or you can, with Eventbridge or the SDK, you can get that data as well. And then the last thing is encryption settings. So you can enable KMS encryption, which if you didn't see the show yesterday, Pavan went really deep into that. Highly recommend it. Again, if you can encrypt, if you can scan your images, why not?
Exactly.
When it's just a button click and it's that simple, why not?
One thing you mentioned yesterday, no performance penalty. So, again, why not?
Yeah. What are you waiting on? By the way, I noticed this. My daughter came in earlier. This is a Halloween decoration. She was decorating the house. It's a little bat, and she stuck it to me. So that's what that is.
Nice.
That's awesome. I just noticed that. So anyway, okay. So then you create the repository, and once you create that repository, the first time you push, it's going to automatically scan. And actually, you know what? Let's just do that really quick. Test doing it live. And we're going to enable scan on push, and we're going to create the repository. So
you should have enabled
URI.
encryption too, because why not?
Because why? Great point, right? Like, how can I say this and then not do it? You're so right. Okay, so I'm going to go back here. Give all the deleting.
Love it.
Hashtag why not? All right, so I have no images here, okay? So if we go to doing it live, I don't have any images yet. I've already built an image. I'm just going to run a Docker build, and then I'm going to Docker push this image. That's fine. Docker push. Actually, I should have. You know what? Let's look at test really quick. Insecure. Hang on 1 second. I'm going to rebuild this. And we're going to do it like this. Nope. Let's do this. Okay. So I want to build an image that has vulnerabilities because, you know, that's cool. So doing it live test, and then we're just going to Docker push. Okay, Docker push, and I'm on a Cloud9 instance, so this is going to go lightning fast. Because if I was doing this from home, 10 megabit upload would not do well.
Man, what is the deal with? You're the second person in 2 days I've talked to that has fast download and only 10 megabit upload.
Yeah, it's just I don't know. It's a dirty trick.
It is, yeah.
So look, I pushed my image, and it's done scanning. Okay, so
Nice.
that quickly, and honestly, I've done it at times where it's taken like a minute or two to return. So it just happened to be instant. Now, my guess is because the image layer, there's a similar layer somewhere else. I don't know.
Yeah.
That I have stored. But anyways, so let's drill down in the vulnerabilities. And you can see here, I have 10 high, 8 medium, 3 low, and that's it. So to me, if I have a low vulnerability, I'm not going to wake someone up at night for that, right? I'm not going to bother a team necessarily for a low one. Maybe we just have somewhere where we can reference up. We have some low vulnerabilities here, but definitely a high or a critical. To me, these are vulnerabilities that we should be looking at to make sure that if they are serious, or if it's something that we, the security team deems a problem, that we're able to nip it right away. So it's a nice visual representation here. And again, this can all be done from the command line. So like I could use the AWS CLI to grab this data and then take that data and do as I wish. So that's basically it. Now I can take this image. Oh, go ahead.
You mentioned Eventbridge. I'm imagining some okay, let's think about, we just got a score basically on that image. We had go back to that screen. Yeah, go back to that screen. Wait, you're gonna do it. Never mind. Okay.
No, it's okay though. If I want, you were getting there, so it's okay. Continue.
Yeah, so we have this score, 10 high, 8 medium, and they each might be weighted differently. You might decide that the number of high is times 10, the number of medium times 1, the number of low times 0.5, that kind of thing. Come up with like a total score for this image, and then anything over that, some predetermined threshold, let's wall it off. Let's say this is not available to be pulled. Yeah.
So, okay. So absolutely. And Brent, I just want to thank you for stealing everything I was going to talk about.
I'm sorry. I had no idea.
I'm just messing with you. That's the best part though, is we think alike. Like this is exactly, So I'm all about event-based architectures, right? Like we shouldn't be polling. We should only act when we need to, and only act when an event takes place. So I've created in Eventbridge, I've created an event. Okay, an event rule. And that rule looks for all image scans from ECR. And what I'm doing is I'm just sending them to a CloudWatch group,
Okay.
CloudWatch logs group. But what I would really do is I would send it to a Lambda function, and that Lambda function would iterate through the results, which here's what you get from
There it is. Yeah.
ECR. So
finding severity counts.
So you drill down, it's JSON. So programmatically you say, are there any high or critical? And if there are, apply a repository policy that denies anyone from being able to pull that image.
Exactly.
So,
bingo.
So think about what you've done there is now you've built with, by the way, built, I'm really saying built. It's a strong word here because all you're doing is writing a little bit of code that will, on events, if you have high or critical, block it. And then also you can notify. So I could send a notification to the security team, to the team that owns this image and say, hey, your image is not allowed to be pulled anywhere. Fix this ASAP. So that's pretty cool, right? So that's the Eventbridge integration.
Right.
Now,
Facebook user says only when an event takes place is a slippery slope. What happens if you don't receive the event for whatever reason? I mean, that is a good question. You do have to have some trust in your queue mechanism and in your event workflows and that kind of thing. But I think, you know, we now have some measurability with Eventbridge and with SNS and SQS and those kinds of services to be able to see what delivery time and delivery percentiles we can expect. So we have years of performance data on that now, and I think we can put, you know, a fair amount of trust into it.
Yeah, and to, if there was like a worry of what if just my program that I wrote in Lambda doesn't catch this? Well, you can have multiple targets. So I could also send this to a CloudWatch logs group, to somewhere else that could be another source of truth where I could reference. But also with Lambda, you have the concept of like dead letter queues, right? Like, or, you know, like if your Lambda function fails enough, you'll have a place where you can reference if something falls into a dead letter queue, exactly. You know, hey, this was an edge case that we didn't program for. Let's see what happened. So there's ways to work around that.
Or if it's just a timeout, then maybe just reprocess it is all that's necessary. Lost Algorithm points out you'd want to augment that with a periodic check anyway to get notified about CVEs that come out after the image was put together. And that goes to kind of what we were talking about earlier, how you can do an image scan once a day on existing images. So you could totally like pick those things up, you know, after the fact, and those would all be their own independent events that would, in our scenario, re-trigger that Lambda to wall it off.
And so I think it's like, let's look at this from the perspective of generally, right? I'm going to make up a number, but most of the time when you're building new container images, you're not doing it once a year. You're not doing it once every 3 months. You're generally iterating relatively quickly. And if you're not, then that's where something like an event-based scan, maybe you want to do that. You trigger like once a day, right, on that same image. That makes sense. But for the most part, I think every time you push a new image, it's going to get a scan. And if you're pushing 5 images a day, a CVE comes out on your between 3 and 4, you're going to catch it in the 4. But that's where runtime scanning also can help.
Yep. And Boke Joe asks, before it scrolls by too far, oh, I love your cat, by the way. Really does cute. AWS have something for building images like Cloud Build? And I don't know Cloud Build specifically to know what it would be like, but something for building images would be, I think, Code Build would be the most direct service. And it's not specifically for building images, it's a CI platform. So it's what I use for building images. We have images in our workshop that we build regularly, and I have all of those built as a code build job.
So let's talk about that really quick.
Yes.
So I also have another demo. So first thing we talked about today, which I really didn't demo too deep, but Eventbridge. So anytime there's an event of a critical or high scan, we can trigger a Lambda. We can trigger I believe even with Eventbridge, you can actually trigger a Fargate task as well, by the way.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
just another way that you can work with this. But that's one approach. But what about in my pipeline? So I'm going to say the term. I heard it yesterday. I think it's been said more this week on the AWS channels than ever. But DevSecOps, right? Like there's so many dev star ops, it's going to get crazy. I remember back in the day when DevOps was first a thing. But anyways, so what about in your pipeline? So how can you control this in a pipeline? Well, if you do events, that's kind of tricky because in my pipeline, I kind of have to wait for an event to like have my pipeline proceed. That just sounds a little hairy. So what you can do instead is in your pipelines, you can just add. So if you look at my build specs, you talked about code build. Code build in the overall code suite ecosystem is what you use in your code pipelines. And by the way, you can also use it with Jenkins. There's other integrations, but this is what you use to actually run your build logic. And build logic means if you want to package a Java jar, if you want to build a Docker image, whatever it is you want to do, that's where you build your artifacts, and you can run tests and do a whole bunch of stuff in the code build job. So in your code build, so on your build step, so I have a build spec YAML, which this defines. This is my structure for how I want my builds of my Docker files to go. So take a look here. I create a repository. I enable scan on push. So remember I said you can do this from the CLI. That's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I run a Docker build and a Docker push. Now, what I do after that is I just wait. I actually pull. So I have a script that just pulls ECR for my image that I just pushed, and it checks, are there any high or critical vulnerabilities? And if there are, stop the build. Nice. So what we're doing is we now have another layer of security built into our pipeline where if the image has vulnerabilities high or critical, this image is not going to even be get deployed to my orchestrators.
Yeah, not only that, but those that pay attention to the outcome of the pipeline would see, hey, this pipeline failed. And, they would see why. It's because of having a vulnerable image.
Yep.
Especially with all those stars that you used.
Yeah, well, I really wanted to make it clear. I really wanted to make it clear that something went wrong.
That's right.
But so this is like traditional CI/CD, but what if you use GitOps? Okay, well then that's where if you're after your build and your push, you wait for the scan results, and if there is if something happens, right, and that image is vulnerable, you can apply a repository policy to deny anyone from pulling that. So there's multiple ways you can approach this. So what do you say we push an insecure Docker image up?
Let's do it. While you're doing that,
Yes.
I'm going to get caught up on some comments here.
Beautiful.
So Bitstorm says, need an AWS provided CVE stream into Eventbridge. And I think that's really what ECR is giving us is the CVEs that come from the Claire open source project. So those are directly integrated. So, I think that would be the closest thing there. And then R1 No wants to know, is this on GitHub? Is it on GitHub? Cool.
Yeah.
And you'll tell us where in a bit.
Yes.
And then Techie Story says, sec part I would still keep separately from developers as the vulnerabilities are chained and needs to be verified with people who know cyber. Yeah, so I think that's, again, where the CVE database coming from Claire is going to be the most useful. And, this is still the beginning of this feature. In the future, we might have additional databases. We might have some customizability. Definitely sound off in our containers roadmap if those are features that you think you would really take advantage of.
But so I really think security, that this is by implementing this in your pipeline, it's still technically, it's out of the hands of the developers. But what happens is if there's a vulnerable image, now the developer can't move forward until someone patches that image. So you at least have a mechanism in place to have some sort of control over, someone who may not understand security actually deploying. And by the way, so my pipeline, I pushed my insecure image. Basically, I just said in my build spec, pull the insecure image and put it rather than the secure image. So my upstream image I'm pulling from just doesn't have a yum update that was ran. So
nice.
So look, it failed. And so all I did in my pipeline, if I go to the logs here, is everything that I had mentioned before. So we're just building our image off of the insecure image, but of course this could be anywhere. We build and then we push to ECR. And then if you look what happens, we wait for the scan to finish, and then we see there are vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
High, critical. So basically I spit them all out here in the console. And then you can see down here, there are critical high. So it stopped the build and it didn't progress.
And Facebook user says, wouldn't ever stop the build, to be honest, just notify for review. And I don't know. I mean, obviously these are just building blocks. So, the logic that Adam put in it was up to Adam, and he decided what logic to follow. So you could certainly do things, your own way. And if you wanted the build to continue, then you totally could. Now, to be perfectly clear, I think we may have phrased things a little bit confusingly, because technically, Adam, the build was finished. It was the deploy that you stopped. So your error message says stopping build, but really it was stopping deploy. It was after the build, but before the deploy step. So you could certainly, because you have to build the image to scan it. So, it's definitely after build, but it's before the next step, which is deploy. And I think most people would want to stop the deploy. They wouldn't want to deploy a vulnerable image, especially knowing that it's vulnerable. So, but maybe you have, different reasoning. So you could totally, bake in the logic a little bit differently and have that deploy go forward if you preferred.
Yep. And look, you're not limited with how you want to do this. And as you said, Brent, this is really up to you and your organization, right? For me, if you really want, for me, Adam wouldn't have anyone be notified. I would have it fully automated to the point where we would look at the CVEs, and I would have it so automated that we would have an automated approval process. Like, I don't want anyone looking at this, and only fail if it's really something, that is serious. But anyways, it's up to you. And that's the beauty. You build this how you want, right?
Exactly.
So I wanted
These
to
are
show
all
you
just building blocks, and you can use them however you like.
Exactly. And here are some of the different options of where you can ship these events to. So you can ship it to SNS and then have that fan out. But and this would actually make sense for Techie Story said, vulnerability can come from a chain of CV events. But yeah, so the idea is you can kind of fan out from here. You don't have to just do it the one way.
Yep. Yeah, you could do some really fancy stuff here if you wanted to.
Yeah. And there was one other one. Just to make it clear again, we are not scanning before the image is pushed. The image is pushed and then we're scanning. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So, so that's it. And you can see I pushed a new image. Now, CloudWatch events, Eventbridge logged it. It sent it to CloudWatch logs, and I can see there's the result of my most recent scan.
Nice.
So just one last thing. I'm going to just change this to the secure image, and then we're going to push that. And then what we should see now is it'll run it'll wait for the results of the scan, and then assuming there's no critical high, it'll push them the deployments through.
While we're waiting on that, where on GitHub can we find your example script?
So I did a tech talk on this, and it was ECR Image Scanning script. It was just, so I just have the script here. This isn't like this isn't the cloud formation to build the pipeline and everything like that, but I just have a build spec YAML and the check scan script that I had written.
Yeah,
just for
and
reference.
I think that's what people were most interested in, is just seeing the logic in check scans, because that's something they could take and package up into their own pipeline. And you know, they may not even be using code build, they may be using some other CI platform.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's what's included in there. So also in that repo is the tech talk I ran through, which the tech talk is basically this, but I just talk in a very formal setting. And I don't, you don't know if it's me or not because I'm so boring. So
Nice.
that's, the webinar format. But anyway, so now we're pushing. You can see it pushed the image. It waited for the scan results. Scan results came back good. There were no vulnerabilities. So my build is complete. And in my CI/CD process, I've considered that a success. So now we're going to go deploy to our environments. And that's what's happening now.
That's awesome.
So that's pretty much it for the demo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions or anything else we can talk about?
I think we've covered basically everything. I was scrolling through the comments looking for anything that was brought up that we may not have addressed already. And I haven't really run into anything. So cool.
Yeah, perfect. So again, Eventbridge is such a great service. That event bus, you can do so much with it. And this is just one of the examples of a way that you can have event-based architectures.
Exactly. Do we know what we're going to be doing tomorrow?
I don't think we do.
Okay. I don't. That's super exciting.
So hopefully we'll have another great ECR something tomorrow. We don't know. It just kind of depends. But yeah.
Yeah, right on. Bokjo says, is it okay to post YouTube videos here? Liz Rice describes image drift really well. Yeah, go ahead. I
Absolutely.
like Liz. She's cool. And then, is it possible to report back to GitHub instead of looking into ECR? Oh yeah, that would actually be really cool. And again, you could put whatever you like into that script like Adam has. So yeah, you could totally make a curl back to GitHub or change like one of the, what do they call those little images, where the build is passing or failing. You could have like an image for is the scan clean or
build
red.
badge.
Build badge. Yes, thank you.
There you go.
Yeah, you could totally do that. And there's the YouTube video.
We should probably check to make sure it's not just some rando YouTube video. I'm just kidding. I'm sure
yeah, we should. We'll just remember Bokjo for tomorrow if
exactly.
he trolls us. So yeah, we're exercising a little bit of trust today. Jeffrey, good to see you. Says this is really helpful. And there's a Claire action for GitHub Actions if you use that anyway. And yeah, you could totally put this into GitHub Actions. You could use GitHub Actions as your build environment and build your images there as well, or instead, if you would prefer. Yeah, so you can take this logic and apply it to any platform, or you could do it on this platform and bring your own logic. Change up the logic if you prefer. But the point is, it's here, it's available to use, and it's completely free. So again, why not?
Yeah. So I think that's it for today. I think we're going to end a little early, which is very unusual for us, but I think it just goes to show the simplicity with ECR and like all this additional functionality that's available. It's just kind of easy,
Yeah, no doubt.
do it. So, okay, well, then I guess with that being said, we will see everyone tomorrow.
I know.
And
I'm looking forward to finding out what we're going to talk about tomorrow.
Yeah, we don't know. We may not know tomorrow, but we'll figure it out.
That's right. We'll do something.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. We'll see you tomorrow.
See ya.